Cubs. Brent, what a difference a week makes since the last time we talked to you. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. What a difference a return phone call made last Friday after I got off the air with you guys. That's when you got first word that Nico was not at practice, and obviously everybody knows what has happened since then. And the question now becomes, what can Tennessee land in the portal? And that's a big question mark right now, and that's what we're all trying to figure out. It's very frustrating for Vol fans because there's not a lot of news. There's not a lot of names being thrown around right there because guys are not in the portal. But Tennessee is certainly working. Their collective is certainly working and talking with agents, third-party, type deals. And since Sunday, the coaching staff has been evaluating any and all quarterbacks around the country just to try to be, as proactive as they can be if somebody were to call them.
So, Brent, let's start there with Tennessee's next move at quarterback. How confident do you feel like Tennessee is that they can get an established starter, or is this more maybe challenging than they thought originally as they try to get somebody to leave their program just about 4 or 5 months before fall camp at the beginning of next season?
I don't think it's more challenging than what Tennessee thought. I think it's more challenging than what some media people, indicated and some fans believed was going to be the case. There was a narrative out there on Monday, I guess, that, everybody was going to be lining up to date Tennessee, right? They were going to have the pick of the ball, so to speak. And I do think Tennessee is attractive, but it's also a situation if a quarterback is leaving, it's a risky move. Even though Tennessee's offense is quarterback friendly and they get to throw the ball around and they get to do a lot of things. If you're established somewhere, going into a new place that is an unknown, where maybe you have one more year to finish where you're at and you've worked to establish that and the offense there in and out and those types of things, it's not the easiest thing to move. Now, is there a certain player out there maybe you can just, give them so much more money than what they're making where they're at that you make it, basically impossible for them to turn down? I mean, maybe that's the case, but you also, if you're Josh Heupel, have to find the right person. I mean, you have to find somebody who can run your offense, somebody who's going to handle your locker room and come in the right way. So, yeah, I don't think Tennessee ever thought it was easy to get an established starter. And I think everybody around that follows it is realizing it's not as easy as some people were making it out to be the first of the week.
VolQuest's Brent Hubbs with us. So, Brent, the one guy we know who is in the portal as of yesterday afternoon, Notre Dame's Steve Angeli. Do you believe Tennessee will have any interest there in the former Notre Dame signal caller?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee has interest in a lot of people right now, and are evaluating a lot of guys, and that's a guy that they're certainly evaluating and looking at, and where that goes, today, where that goes, in the next hour, we'll see. I mentioned this on VolQuest last night when some people were disappointed that we haven't thrown out a bunch of names. Here's a scenario that was presented to me over a 24-hour span. Scenario one, Tennessee's in pretty good shape. They got a real shot with this guy. 3 hours later, no, he's going to stay where he's at. He's not leaving. The next morning, hey, it's not dead yet. There's still a chance. That's what you're dealing with here, because agents are trying to leverage everything. And kids and their families are trying to decide if they want to uproot and figure out if they can establish themselves in 100 days to be the next quarterback and a successful quarterback at a new place like Tennessee. So obviously the young man from Notre Dame is leaving. He is moving, and Tennessee is absolutely evaluating him. And I would almost guarantee that his agent has called Tennessee, because he's looking for a new home, right? Like, it's not like he might go in, he might not go in. He has definitely gone in. Now, he's not the most established guy. He has played and has experience, but it's not like he's a 2-year starter there. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I would definitely put him on the list right now. I put a lot of people on the list. The question is, are any of those guys going to move? He's one we definitely know is moving.
Brent Hubbs, VolQuest's on 3 with us this morning. Hubbs, when you look at this situation, the portal's wide open right now. There's been a couple of Vols hop in themselves too. What is the ripple effect of this, do you think, or have heard about guys flirting potentially with the portal, or just maybe coach I'll leave so pay me a little bit more? Has that been happening over this last week?
I mean, I don't think there's a bunch of offensive skill guys looking to leave. If you're talking about a ripple effect with Nico's departure. Obviously, there's two defensive backs who've gone in the portal, and John Slaughter, who was going to be primarily a special teams guy. The Christian Charles move surprises me. I think that Tennessee was, going to reward him financially if he stayed. The collective was going to, and he's a guy who's battled injury. He played through a pretty significant shoulder injury last year and was going to have a chance to be the starter at Tennessee this year, but obviously feels like there's something greener for him out there in the pastures. So he's looking for another school, which is a bit of a surprise. And I don't know that they're done. I could see some other guys certainly going in the portal. I mean, right now you got a lot of agents playing a lot of games. You got kids asking for more, and Tennessee is, it's not monopoly money. You got to decide what a guy's worth is, what his value is, and do you want to let that guy walk, or do you want to spend more money to keep that guy? And they're not broke or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that, but you have to be you're somewhat good stewards of the money, even though the money continues to grow seemingly every year, every 6 months, every portal cycle. There seems to be more money found, but you do have to be mindful that it's not monopoly money and unlimited.
Man, Hubs, as of late since the portals opened up this week, man, there's been a few coaches speaking out and saying a few things. Deion called out Virginia for some stuff, trying to get one of their guys, which all of this is normal. They just decided to broadcast it. But a future opponent, man, I thought did something yesterday were very smart, and I hope can help change the landscape of this NIL era. But Fran Brown really kind of leaned in a little bit yesterday, speaking about their wide receiver that's hopping into the portal. And he made a point that it seems to me he set a ceiling. He said, y'all are not old boy down in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Talking about Jeremiah Smith. He's getting $2 million. Mm-hmm. If you're not at his level or Marvin Harrison Jr. at the point, Hubs, does that kind of somewhat settle what the market should be at wide receiver? Now, quarterback with Nico and, his camp or whoever else is the $4 million, the ceiling. Like, is that what we're going to get to where the coaches have to set these markets?
Well, that's what you hope. You hope the market self-corrects and settles down. I wouldn't say corrects, but settles down a little bit and doesn't keep going at the pace that it's going at. But here's what you have to remember. All it takes is one.
Yeah.
All it takes is one school paying, whatever, because they're desperate for somebody at that position. They overpay for it. And then all of a sudden somebody else says, well, if he's getting that, then I can get that, and that's the way that this thing works. And, the Nico situation be a reality check for quarterbacks out there? Sure. But do they also look and say, well, Carson Beck got this, and so I can get that. I mean, when are cooler heads, maybe smarter heads, more thorough decisions made instead of emotional decisions made about going into the portal? We'll find out. Now, the young man at Syracuse will land somewhere. He's not going to get $2 million, but he will land somewhere because he's not going back to Syracuse. But, yeah, I mean, I think coaches are going to say that. And, listen, Josh Heupel has drawn great praise for how he handled last week, and Tennessee's drawn great praise for taking and drawing a line in the sand. Now, is everybody going to be happy in the fall if they're not where they need to be at quarterback and they throw up a record that, is not what the rest of the roster should perform at, or the amount of money they're paying for that roster, and all of a sudden you're throwing up a record that doesn't have you in playoff contention? Is everybody going to be happy? Is everybody going to go, hey, I mean, Urban Meyer had that part right? Is everybody going to go, hey, that's great. It's okay if we go 7-5 because we took a line in the sand. Or is everybody going to forget the line in the sand and go, hey, poor roster management, poor decisions, paying a lot of money for a roster, paying a head coach a lot of money, you got to perform better than that. Don't have a lot of patience in college football with fan bases. And that patience is probably thinner than it's ever been because of the portal stuff and the money that you're going through right now, that those people have high expectations. And that's just something that is a byproduct of all this. I know that's a long-winded answer to, you want it to be everybody takes a stand, but it just takes one. And all of a sudden, if you're not winning, nobody's happy.
Right.
Brent Hubbs, our good friend at VolQuest, joining us as he does every time here on Fridays. So going back to Nico Iamaleava and his camp, and there's just so much stuff that has been said from whether it be it's not the money that we were looking at to it's more of the offense. On that note, Brent, he's been technically the least productive quarterback under Josh Heupel. We went through his history. Will put out a list a couple days ago. Is there anything, though, about this offense, Brent, that you would be like, okay, maybe there's some validation in what that camp was saying about that?
No, I mean, because of the history. The history says it's productive. Now, that's not to suggest that Nico's not talented. I don't know necessarily why it didn't click. Their camp is always going to say it was a lack of playmakers around him, a lack of offensive linemen, and lack of protection. Defenders are defending Josh Heupel differently the last couple of years than what they did the first couple of years he was at Tennessee. But Tennessee has evolved and adjusted some things. It just didn't work. And I don't know exactly why he didn't perform at the level we anticipated him performing at last year. I do think there's probably more than just him. I think it's unfair to say he was the sole reason. And I've seen the clips out there that people have put out of, worth $4 million, and it's every overthrow that he made last year, right? That they forget he made some plays too. He just didn't make nearly enough plays against the competition that you were wanting him to make. At the same time, too, he was a part of a team that went to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. He wasn't the sole reason they went to the playoffs, but he was a part of the team that went to the playoffs. And he was terrific in the second half against Alabama. You don't beat Alabama without him in the second half. Now, he wasn't good in the first half. He had a hard time putting a full game together and all those things. I just think his camp is obviously trying to save a little face here. On the flip side, there's obviously some people at Tennessee that are putting out, various things like not being at a TV production meeting and all the stuff that, was completely irrelevant and Tennessee was just going to work right through that. The bottom line for me in regards to Nico is this goes back to what I believe is one of the most baffling decisions I've ever covered in college athletics in my 30-year career, and that's his decision not to come to practice for a week ago today. That's the one that I will go down in my history as going, I'll never understand that one. There's no justification from his camp to miss that practice and put themselves in the corner and box themselves in. Finish spring, and who knows where this thing lands. He's not going to get $4 million at Tennessee, but who knows where we land, and he lands if he handles the last 2 days of spring practice the right way, in my opinion, by coming to practice. His decision to not come on Friday, I'll never understand.
Yeah, mind-blowing, at least. Brent Hubbs joining us like he does every Friday at 7:20. We're talking a little Vols. On a positive note, from spring ball, from what we saw, it looks like this is a freshman class with a lot of upside. What do you like about them in particular as a class?
Well, I think they're talented. I mean, I do. I think they've got the length that you're looking for in the secondary. I like their size at wide receiver with the newcomers. David Sanders is obviously a talent. And he's going to be a really good player sooner rather than later. I like the young tight ends. The reality for all those guys is they don't get to be young very long. Their days of being young are pretty much over. You have got to attack the off season if you're them the right way, not just physically but mentally, to put yourself in a position to be ready to go come August, because you don't have time to be a freshman. This is going to be a young Tennessee football team in a lot of places. And some of that youth has got to, Isaiah Campbell at defensive tackles got to grow fast. He's got to get it all figured out pretty quickly here. So I think the one thing is you like the talent. That talent has to create some experience for themselves somehow this summer in preparation mentally, because they're going to play early and often out of the gate. A lot of those guys are.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest's On 3, our guest. Brent, I know Tennessee fans have attached themselves to a couple of names who have already been reportedly going back to their current schools with bigger deals. Avery Johnson at Kansas State, Josh Hoover at TCU, and On 3 had that report. How realistic is it for Tennessee to live in that Rocco Becht, Sawyer Robertson world? Or is that kind of pie in the sky of what fans think is reasonable and maybe is unreasonable based on what's happening behind the scenes?
Well, I think you've got to swing. And again, I go back to what somebody told me in a 24-hour span. It's
right.
It's going to happen. It's not going to happen. Well, it's not completely dead. And so if if an agent's continuing to have conversation with the collective, you continue to have those conversations. With people, if the coaching staff has evaluated their film and likes their talent, is it going to be hard to land some of those, a guy like that? Again, I think it's going to be more challenging than people think that it is. I mean, you've got some guys who I think their agent expressed early interest, absolutely. And then I think that maybe those guys have sort of backed off what that interest is. Now, do you raise the stakes financially and get their attention and get the oven heated back up, if you will? I mean, that could be a possibility here. That's what, you're working through is that's the pie in the sky, right? That's the moonshot. That's
right.
What you're shooting for. Can you land that? I mean, you can keep trying, and you should, but do you get to a point where you go, okay, we just have to turn our attention completely elsewhere because those guys aren't realistic? And here's the thing. I mean, at some point, there'll be some agent leak out there that, Tennessee lowballed them or they wanted to come. And, I mean, there'll be a John Gruden moment, right, where it's like, hey, I wanted to come, but Tennessee didn't want me.
Right.
That's going to come out, because agents are playing games. I mean, that's how this works. They're trying to get the most money for their player. And then if he returns and they celebrate that return, then it gets them more NIL deals, right? Somebody who's a big fan of the program somebody gives them an NIL deal for a little more cash, and they're celebrated more at their place. So agents are using it to their PR advantage. Particularly if their client does not move. You can spin that in a way that makes you very celebrated in the town you stay in, particularly if it's a small town like Ames, Iowa, or something like that.
Brent, on the way out, the Nate Ament sweepstakes continue. Is it fair to say Tennessee has put themselves in a good position for him? And is there a timeline of him maybe making an announcement one way or another in the next couple of days?
I think that they have put themselves in the best position they can put themselves in. And Rick Barnes has been so hands-on in this one that if they land Nate Ament, it's going to be about relationship that this coaching staff, in particular Rick Barnes, has with Nate and what Nate is looking for financially. I think he could probably get more money somewhere else. I mean, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I think Duke can write whatever check they want to write if they want somebody. So I think that Tennessee is as positioned as well as they can right now. You would probably like for him to make a decision sooner rather than later. He has had a hard time coming to a decision. There's the notion that it may be in the next week or two he comes to a decision. I don't know. Maybe he gets it done faster than that. I know some people in his camp are ready for him to make a call, make a decision. But some of those people are ready for him to do that at the first of this month and the end of March, and he wasn't ready. So it's on his timeline. We'll see how quickly he can get to a decision, and we'll see what the back and forth is between Tennessee and Duke, particularly their collectives here and down the stretch run of this. I don't know that there's a whole lot of changes there on Tennessee's end. I think this is kind of to the point where, Nate, where do you want to play? Do you want to play for Rick Barnes or do you want to play at Duke? And you're going to have to make that decision because I don't know that Duke's going to come back with a new huge big offer or Tennessee's coming back with a big offer. I think they're kind of where they are, and it's probably in Nate's corner to make a decision at some point here.
VolQuest's Brent Hubbs, a lot of business to get to here this morning. Brent, I wish we had time to talk about this new country playlist Ramon Scott
Right?
for his drives up to Knoxville for the upcoming weekends of the fall for some reason. I can't remember what the reason is. But we had a lot of business to get to this morning. We appreciate you as always.
Absolutely. You guys have a great weekend, okay?
Yes, sir.
Brent.
You as well. Brent Hubbs with us here this morning, taking time out of his very busy schedule to join us. All of his conversations with us brought to you by Ascend Federal Credit Union, your financial partner for every stage of life.
Yeah.
Always good stuff from him.
It was. Hubs was straight business today.
Yeah.
I understood the assignment today.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
right?
finna, I
He
wasn't
was
finna
like,
play
no
around
joking
with
around or anything, right?
Hubs ready to go.
Let's react to some of that. I'm curious, who is at the top of your wish list for Tennessee football? I've got a new name at the very top of mine. That's got a lot of buzz right now in the Vol Twitter world. Plus, a quarterback is trash talking his new offensive coordinator in college football. A funny quote that surfaced yesterday that we'll get to next.